My name is Josh Harrouch. I've been with the department for over 25 years. Like I said earlier, I was in the bridge design section for the first part of my career, about 8 years, and 13 in the traffic engineering group. And I've been, maybe the math doesn't work out exactly like that, but I've been in the ITS group for the past 3 years as the director. What I learned real quick when I got into the ITS group, and I was kind of new to that whole world, really. I'd been primarily doing regular, traditional projects, roundabouts, innovative intersections, access management, project management of regular roadway projects. But we were always trying to solve the same type of problems. You know, traffic issues come up, they call the traffic engineering group, we'd come in and try to come up with a solution, whatever that may be. So I get over to the ITS group and I learned real quickly that it was really the same thing. It's just approaching it from a different angle, approaching it more with technology-based solutions. So that's kind of my first introduction to what we were trying to do in terms of TSMO. So we mentioned about that NOCO sponsors these regional operations leadership forums. I was I was told to select a team and go to this Harrouch conference in Dallas of 2022. And the whole purpose of it was to train professionals at the DOTs about TSMO, create champions, to bring it back to the agencies and kind of, I guess, implement it, teach it, whatever. And really, I bought in. I bought in completely, primarily just because having been in traffic engineering, we had a lot of pushback. A lot of times when we were doing a project, there may have been a project that was already moving forward. They already had determined what the traffic control was going to be, or that we were going to widen, or whatever. And we would come in and say, well, we may not necessarily need to widen. Maybe we could add a median. Maybe we could change the intersection just to try to improve traffic flow. But it was late in the game a lot of times. They didn't really understand within our own agency what we were trying to do from the traffic engineering group. So sometimes it created a little tension within our own staffing. And so when I was listening to TSMO at this Harrouch conference, I was like, man, if we would have had this, if we would have had the language or the ability to speak about it with our own people and understand what we were really trying to do, we may have been more successful early on. And so I bought in and I just was determined to come back to DOTD and let's get the message out, try to implement it at DOTD. So I don't know if everybody knows what TSMO is in this room. Like I said, I hadn't heard about it, and I had been in the department for over 20 years at the time. I can't really read it on the slide, but the FHWA definition is what you would expect from an FHWA definition, very thorough. But really, what we were really trying to do, and what we had been doing as a traffic engineer, was just trying to get the most out of our roadway, getting everything that we could as far as mobility before we even started thinking about adding capacity. So that had been my mission. So in essence, I was doing TSMO for the majority of my career, and now I was going to get to do it again on the ITS front. So every time I give a presentation on TSMO, I like to bring this project up because this is the Katy Freeway and I-10 in Houston. So this project is an example. If you go back historically looking at this project and you see it, it's just, it may have started with a 2-lane highway or a 4-lane highway, and it's expanded to this massive project. And at the time of this project, it was $2.8 billion widening. It's up to 26 lanes, 12 mainline lanes, 8 frontage roads, 6 managed lanes. But the commuter traffic increased by 30%, or the commute travel times have increased by 30% in the AM and 55% in the afternoon. So I'm not going to say that this was TSMO wouldn't have required that. You know, I mean, the volumes in Houston are pretty ridiculous. And I'm sure there's some ITS solutions that are part of this, but the initial thought every time we have a congestion problem is we just got to widen, we just got to build more and build more. And the bottom line is we just can't build more. That can't be the solution that we're thinking about every time we start facing congestion. We really need to think about other alternative solutions. We just can't build our way. And this has been the traditional way of how we do things. And that's kind of what TSMO tries to do, is just start thinking about it in a different fashion. So why does that happen? So when you get, we talk about induced demand. So what'll happen is you get your roadway, it starts getting congestion, people start clamoring. We used to say before I became a traffic engineer that everyone is a traffic engineer and everyone has the solutions that they think need to be done. And so when that happens, they clamor, they go to your elected officials, you start hearing the complaints, and there's a lot of pressure to alleviate that, with the first solution having been traditionally to just add capacity. And at first, that works. That works really well. It's a brand new road. But what it doesn't, and when we go do a new road, you know, we got to study, we got to identify the volumes that we're expecting to determine what kind of roadway we're going to need. But what that fails to capture is the people that aren't necessarily using that road at the time of congestion. They might be taking that roadway at a different time. They might be taking other modes of transportation. They might be rerouting in certain areas. And so when that road gets built, though, everybody's, oh, we got a brand new road, let's get on it, you know, and before you know it, you're back to where you know, not what you were hoping to get out of that life of that new roadway. We're back to being that same congestion levels. And we're already seeing that in some of the projects that we've done in Louisiana. I was involved on a widening project in Covington, and we're already starting to see that it's getting back to congestion. The I-10 widening, which is new, I can anticipate that we're going to start having those same issues as well. And so that's what we're trying to kind of work against. So again, when you think TSMO and ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, they kind of seem to be synonymous with each other. And a lot of the reason for that is because at the end of the day, once your road is congested, there's just not a lot left. Like once we finish this I-10 widening project, there's no more space. So all we're gonna have to do is ITS-based solutions or technology-based solutions. And so, like I said, I was involved in a lot of these things that we call traditional roadway projects. You know, we did roundabouts, we did J-turns or R-cuts, road diets, which is taking a 4-lane highway, turning it into a 3-lane section, which ends up giving you better capacity. In some cases, we did signal timing improvements. Those are all things that I was involved with, and I want to make particular note about the Complete Streets effort that we had at DOTD. I was very involved in that, and especially in New Orleans, because there's a lot of advocacy for bikers here in New Orleans. And the thing about it is we had this policy at DOTD that had been put on by our previous secretary. This was when Sherry LaBaugh was the secretary of DOTD. And we had a policy that we needed to include and have complete streets, consider complete streets on every project. But it really didn't have that meat that it may have needed. The policy didn't have a way to define it. How are we going to implement it? And so that was kind of an issue. So we were involved in developing that policy. And really, not until we were able to include it into our design guidelines, into specific engineering directives, did we really start making progress on complete streets. Nowadays, we have to consider it on every project. Our road design guidelines at a minimum require a 4-foot shoulder, just so we can have bikes. So that wasn't a thing in the past, and it didn't happen until it became part of the culture at DOTD, which is in essence what we're trying to do. And again, DOTD, it's not like DOTD is not doing TSMO or not doing these ITS-based solutions that are traditional TSMO solutions. I mean, we have our TMCs, we have our 511, we've done some work with connected vehicles, we have our Motorist Assistance Patrol. It's a very popular program that runs under my group. And I remember when I first got there, I knew about the MAP, or the Motorist Assistance Patrol, we call it the MAP program. I knew about it, but I was probably, like most people, considered that as, DOTD's AAA service, and not really realizing the engineering impact that it has on improving traffic flow, improving safety, eliminating or preventing, hoping to prevent secondary crashes, the things that get you moving. Because a lot of times what leads to that induced demand or that pressure to widen is the roadway. Everyone's used to taking a longer commute in the morning or in the evening. That's just, we know there's more people on the road. What they don't like or what they can't do is as easily is when that 1 hour commute that you're expecting turns into 2 hours or 3 hours because some event happened on the roadway. And that's what leads to the problems that we face as a transportation agency. And that's what TSMO tries to alleviate by promoting a more reliable commute. So what was the problem? Well, the problem at DOTD, like I said, we were all doing this. I was doing TSMO for 13 years. Our traditional TSMO solutions have been around for a while as well. But we didn't talk, nobody knew, nobody considered it on projects. Nobody even knows what TSMO was. To this day, we're still working on, and that's what the whole purpose of what we're trying to do is. And so the idea is we want to have people considering TSMO very early in the project development process. Start considering where can we facilitate having the ability to implement TSMO earlier on. And I'll give an example. We had a project. I had been in ITS. I had a guy that had been working with me for most of the time I was in traffic. And now he was in ITS, and he's a go-getter. And we had a project, and the project manager asked us, hey, what do you need from ITS here? And my guy came in with $1 million. He wanted to add $1 million of camera equipment, fiber, things of that nature. Well, my project manager freaked out, right? Because that wasn't in the budget. That wasn't originally in the plan. And I understood that because it does. It wasn't accounted for. It might delay the project a little bit of time. But the point that I made to him is we're not considering striping. We know we're going to have signs. We know we got to have concrete, to build our roadway. And so the fact that ITS was being looked at, or TSMO was being looked at as an afterthought, that is the problem that we're trying to address. We want you thinking about that. Hey, should we have fiber as part of this project at the very beginning when we're planning for this project? That was the goal. That's the goal now. So after coming back from that Rolf conference, and we started looking across the state, across the country, at what other states had been doing in terms of developing a TSMO strategic plan. And so I said, well, we needed that. So we started on that process. We hired a consultant to kind of help us along that process. And the big goal that we're trying to have is we have so many documents. We have a TSMO document in our office that even people in our own office hadn't seen. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid having another document that sits on the shelf that doesn't become part of what we're trying to do at DOTD. So the first step in trying to do that was we needed to get some buy-in. We needed to go talk to the leadership, talk to some of the leaders within upper management as well as that second level, and just tell them what TSMO could bring to the table, make the business case, show how we could maximize investments, the high return that we can have for the money that's invested. A lot of the times, you can implement a TSMO solution a lot faster than you can widening a roadway. Widening a roadway can take years, getting the environmental process, getting the design done, the permit process. I've been on projects that have lasted 7-10 years, you know, and an ITS-based solution or TSMO-based solutions can be done a lot faster. It's going to reduce traffic congestion. And then having those partnerships with our own internal stakeholders, our own team, as well as our partners, our stakeholders, our elected officials, the general public, we can make a case for what the benefits of TSMO can be. But at the same time, we needed to identify those potential barriers that could make it difficult. Like, what are the funding constraints? What are our own internal processes and business practices that make it difficult to implement? We have our political constraints, you know, when an elected official is promising his constituents that, hey, we're gonna widen this roadway. You know, there's a pressure to accommodate that, right? But the idea is, well, how do we get the elected official to understand the benefits of TSMO so that we can provide that alternative solution as well? So those are some of the things that we've been trying to focus on and trying to understand, because like I said, when I was in the traffic group, we didn't have that. We were just kind of going at it alone and like crusaders, and that's not always the best way to do things, you know, especially with engineers, because we all know what we're doing, you know. So we went through this process, and earlier this year we went to all our district offices and kind of initially we made a case with our leadership, and then the next step of that process was going to each district office and telling them a little bit about what we were trying to do. We did that with the Office of Engineering at headquarters, as well as the Office of Operations, which engineering is just, think about it as planning and project development and operations. Once it's on the road, it's got to work, right? So everything's got to work together. So we kind of went through that process, and then we had a CMM or Capability Maturity Workshop. It's kind of guided by FHWA, and really to establish where we are as an agency, where we're doing well, where we need a little help, where we're trying to get to. That turned into a state of the state report, kind of just to outline where we are, and then identifying some strategic goals and short, midterm, and long-term plans to try to start implementing this into the culture of DOTD. So that's pretty much where we are. We've developed a draft strategic plan. The next steps would be to bring that to the leadership again, kind of show them where we're at, and hopefully, because I think the areas that we really want to focus on, and I kind of model it after the Iowa DOT, is first just start putting it into our policies, kind of like what we did with the Complete Streets policy, and then kind of get a training, high-level training for all employees to understand really what we're all trying to do. So that's the first step. There's many more, sorry. There's many more that we've addressed in this document, but that's kind of where we're going to initiate our focus. So with that, just before, any questions before, I got a little video that I want to show you, but if there's any other questions before that, I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, I'm convinced. Hopefully y'all are too, so thank you.